Welcome to another episode of I'm Sure They're Doing Their Best, hosted by Paul Baylor and Drew Ferdwell.
Hello.
Hello, Paul.
How are you?
Oh, boy, it has been a busy week, but then again, what weeks aren't? How are you?
Today was a rich, full day in the life of Paul, so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well,
you can't leave me hanging.
I had to go to the dentist.
You know, it's funny you bring that up. I'm also going through some dental issues, so we'll just turn this into dental podcast for a minute. So you go first.
Well, I don't like going to the dentist at all. I have dental anxiety. I'm pretty sure those two words are in my file. So I eventually went for a cleaning, and I've had a lot of dental work done in the past. I was missing a few teeth, and I generally have kind of weak enamel, so I have more porcelain in my mouth than a real enamel at this point. But I had to get a filling repaired, and I had a crown that was starting to crack, so I had to get those replaced. The fun part for me was the filling took 2 tries. She put it in there first, and then didn't like it, so drilled it back out and put it back in again, and that didn't help my anxiety. And then while they were replacing the crown, there was a moment where I'm pretty sure I tasted blood, and they kept making me bite down on gauze, but no one really acknowledged the fact that someone had injured me and I was bleeding in my mouth. And so that wasn't very fun, but now it's done.
Well,
it's done.
The key's not the panic when there's blood.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So my dental issues. Were you done? I'm sorry.
I'm done. No, go ahead.
Okay. So my dental issues are kind of far ranging right now.
Okay.
So there's when you really take a step back and you sort of just kind of drink all of me in. I'm not especially pleasant to look at. However, I will say that my parents, especially my mom, made a really big deal of my brother and I's teeth growing up. And I have had more than one dentist remark on the fact that my teeth are in really good shape. And I've never needed braces. I only have one tooth that is slightly out of alignment. And my teeth have always been something that I've felt pretty good about. I've never had them whitened or anything like that, but I generally take pretty good care of my teeth. I am on a pretty religious brushing schedule, and I keep them pretty good. But that's not to say that I haven't had my share of problems with my teeth. There's basically 3 things going on in my mouth right now. The first is, a few years ago when I was playing hockey more, you've played hockey with me. You know that when I play hockey, I wear a helmet but no shield at all.
Yes.
So that, I do wear a mouth guard now, but there was a time where I used to have a shield, but it broke, and I basically went without a shield just because I was too poor to buy another one. And I had one of those cheap mouth guards that you buy at the hockey store that you're supposed to soak in boiling water and then bite into, and they never hold their shape. And I have a gag reflex, spoiler alert, but I don't like having things all the way back in my mouth. Feel free to cut that audio up.
I'm gonna keep it for me later.
Yeah, there you go. Someone is going to cut this audio of me saying that I don't have a gag reflex. I have a gag reflex, okay? Everybody settle down. So anyway, I was playing a game of hockey, and was playing a little more aggressive than I normally do, and I went in to take this guy's head off. That's the technical term in hockey. And when he saw me coming at the last second, he held his stick up, and his stick hit me right in the mouth, and it shattered one of my front teeth, completely shattered it.
Oh, ow. Did he get a double minor?
No, I got the penalty.
You got the penalty.
And I had to leave the ice because I was bleeding everywhere. Yeah, so I just remember it happening. I remember feeling that squish in my mouth of enamel fragments basically shrapneling my gums and blood all in my mouth. my gloves went up to my mouth. There was blood over my glove, and then I took a breath in, and that was probably one of the most painful things that I've ever had happen to me. Next day, I go to the I basically took some leftover OxyContin I had from a previous injury to keep me through the night, and then I went to the dentist for emergency surgery the next day, and they were able to save the tooth. So what they ended up doing was I didn't need a root canal or anything. So basically, they chiseled my big tooth down to like a quarter of its size, and then fitted me with a cap. So one of my front teeth is this huge, massive crown. But now I've got two other things going on in my mouth right now that are causing me some issues. The first is that growing up, even though I took pretty good care of my teeth, I had a lot of cavities, especially in my back molars. And the dentist that I went to did silver fillings. It was super old school. Right?
I'm familiar. Yes.
Yeah. The problem with silver fillings, though, is that over time they leach the enamel out of your teeth.
Yes.
And I had a particularly large silver filling in the back of my mouth that was causing my tooth to basically die. So probably 8-9 years ago, my dentist said to me, listen, we need to basically get rid of that filling, and we're going to basically replace it with the standard, I don't know what it is. It's probably some composite material that they basically pack in there that's white.
It's white,
right?
Now. Yep.
But it's basically almost the full side of my tooth. I mean, it's a crown without being a crown. Let's call it that way.
Okay, that's a lot of work.
Well, he did it. Novocaine shots and a lot of drilling and a lot of packing and pressure.
I'm getting
all good times, right? Yeah. So, but it was fine. But I went in for a cleaning 12 months ago, and the hygienist had noticed that the filling was cracked. So there's like two like hairline fractures where this filling is, and it's not causing it. It wasn't causing me any pain. And they said, listen, we need to get you in for a crown. Well, the thing of it is this was right before I left my previous job, and I was on my wife's insurance exclusively. So, I was a dependent. I didn't have insurance through our work except for dental and vision. So basically, we kind of double up on dental and vision because we both go to the dentist a lot and we both wear, contacts and glasses. Okay, whatever. So, they said, listen, we need to get you in for a crown. And I said, well, what is this going to cost? Because I remember what it cost to get the crown on my front tooth, and it was not very cheap. And they said, well, what we do is we basically do a prior authorization with your insurance company to say, here's what we want to do. How much are you going to cover? So they did all that, and then they got an answer back right as I changed jobs and changed insurance. So we kind of just let it lapse. Yep. So I went in for a cleaning a few weeks ago, and they said, listen, we really need to get this taken care of. The fractures aren't necessarily any bigger, but the longer we wait, the greater the possibility is that we're going to have to basically not do a crown in your tooth, but do a root canal and maybe pull the tooth, right?
Get decay back there, and that's a bad
so
time. Yeah. I've had many root canals. Woo.
Yeah, so the clock is ticking, right? And I'm still waiting on. So they submitted my information for my insurance for the crown. Talked to my dentist. Basically, he just needs to shave like a millimeter off of my tooth. And this dentist is state of the art. I gotta say, I love my dentist. They basically have a 3D scanner. Like, they don't even do X-rays or molds. They basically have a 3D scanner they stick in your mouth.
Yep.
And that will give them like the precise measurements to make the crown. Yep. Now, they don't 3D print the crowns.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool. So they submitted the information to my insurance. My primary insurance, aka the insurance under my name, came back, and they're paying for roughly half of it. But, I am able to submit a secondary claim to my wife's to see if they'll make up some more of the difference. So right now, I'm on the hook without my wife's secondary insurance for about $680 for this crown.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that they can cover it a little bit more. And then, they said, whatever you do, try not to chew on this side of this mouth, on the side of your mouth where this crack is. Well, that's a hard thing. You have to have like some pretty decent presence of mind and not do that. So I've been trying not to do that, and I somehow injured the other side of my mouth. And I don't know if it's because I've been clenching at night or if I've been under stress or whatnot, but now the other, like the side of my mouth where I know that I have this crack filling doesn't hurt. The other side of my mouth does. And I don't know if it's like a sympathy pain thing or I somehow like have something going on that side of my mouth. Yeah. So I've got my share of dental issues going on right now as well.
Yeah, dentists are no fun. Yeah. So, like I said before, I'm missing a couple teeth, and the teeth right beside my front teeth I don't have. So I have a set of bridges, which I hate. Bridges don't last forever. They eventually will start cracking, especially the ones in your front teeth because you use them quite a bit. And while my bridges look really nice, the one on my left is cracked. So I eventually need to get those replaced. But even with the insurance, it's ridiculously expensive, and you can't just get one replaced. You have to get them both replaced because they can't guarantee that they'll be the same color. So it's a giant pain in the butt. Well, my son is missing like 6 teeth, 6 adult teeth. Just doesn't have them. So we're going to start the process with him of getting him braces to move all of his teeth that he does have to the places where they're going to be. So when he's like 19, he can get dental implants because I'm not letting him get bridges because they stink. Yeah, so that'll be fun. Yeah, I actually went to an oral surgeon to talk about replacing my bridges with dental implants, and he's like, "Well, since you had all that space, all these roots, your roots took extra room. So the first thing we'd have to do is like put you in braces for 3 years." And I'm like, "Nope, I'm done. No thanks." Yeah, teeth.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. Like, I don't have the best pain tolerance in the world, and every time I go to the dentist, I always try to get the same hygienist who is very, very gentle with my teeth, because that one crown on my front tooth was not a perfect fit, and on the back of my tooth the root is exposed. So like directly under the gum, like not very far, part of my root is back there. And if I give a hygienist that I've not worked with before, and they get up in there with that little hook, I will fly out of that chair. Like, it is not a good sensation to have. And yeah, I could typically sit there for the cleaning. I can sit there for the Novocaine shot. Now, my wife had to have some pretty substantial dental surgery that, they gave her the nitrous, and they had to like put like an implant in there and everything.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. That was, she was a trooper though. She got through it. Yeah. So yeah, fun dental times. I'm hoping that I can get this resolved. Hopefully after Thanksgiving, before Christmas will probably when I try to get this done. I'm just, like I said, I'm waiting on some more insurance things because that's the life we have to live.
Speaking of holidays, we're recording on Halloween. How was your Halloween, Drew?
Well, here, let me just, this is a package of Sweet Tarts. I'm now going to chew some hard candy on the side of my mouth. I'm not supposed to.
Nice. Make sure you get right up in the microphone so we can hear that real
right,
good.
Okay. All right, ready? Here we go.
Yeah.
They're very sour.
Yeah, nice.
All right, ready? Going to go for a crunch. All right, here we go.
Oh, there it is.
You're welcome.
This is good audio.
Yeah, so it's Halloween. I saw the funniest thing. All right, look.
Okay.
I don't have kids, okay? But we celebrate children's holidays. We love giving presents to kids. We love Halloween. We don't get a ton of trick-or-treaters in our neighborhood because the neighborhood I live in basically has 2 major thoroughfares. One of them has a sidewalk and one of them does not. And we live on the street that doesn't have a sidewalk, so we don't get a lot of foot traffic.
Yeah. Okay.
But we have some neighborhood kids that know us, and they always stop over, and they're anxious to show us their costumes. And we've got some newer families in the neighborhood that kind of walk through, and then we get some kids from a relatively busy street in Dublin. So we get, I don't know, maybe a dozen or so kids, okay? Well, so we're recording on Halloween tonight. That lasted from like 6 to 8:30 or something. I don't even really know what time it goes. But we had really crappy weather here in Dublin today.
It's crappy yeah. All of Central Ohio is crappy, yes.
And it rained the last 2 days. And then as part of that rain, this really nasty cold front came through today. And it got very, very windy for trick-or-treat. So you have all these kids in these costumes out there getting gusted around by this wind. And it's, I don't know, man, it's pretty windy out there. Like, I want to say we're gusting to like 25, 30 miles an hour out there.
Yeah. I think with the wind, it feels like 29 degrees. Yeah.
It's also very cold. Okay. All right, so check this out. There's this little kid. I don't know how old he was. He was walking through our court, and he's dressed up as Captain America. Okay, it's beautiful little kid, right? I'm not anti-kid, but I fell on the floor laughing because he had his Captain America shield strapped to his back, and the wind caught him, and it must have threw him back 6 feet, and he landed square on his butt. Oh. And I lost my. I want to swear. I want to do a curse. It was almost like it was a little kid kite because he just flew straight back on this gust of wind. It was the funniest thing I've seen all week. Oh, I felt so bad. He dusted himself off. There was a little bit of tears, but his parents were there and he dusted himself off, and we gave him some extra candy because. And his dad took the shield. So, lesson learned.
Yeah, so this is the first year that we've done trick or treat in our neighborhood. Usually we go somewhere else with the kids. So this year we did it at our house. So we didn't know what to expect. We had way too much candy, and it was gross. It was so basically if any kid that came up to my door, braved the weather, they got like handfuls of candy, and I still have way too much. And there was this one kid. He was maybe 3 years old. And I don't know what he's wearing because whatever costume he has is buried under a coat. And I give him a handful of candy. He's like lots of Suckers and Skittles and Starburst. And he looks at it. He says, "Thank you." And then he's looking at the bowl, looking at all the candy I have. And I'm like, "Well, do you want some more?" And he's like, "Yes." And then I put more in his bag.
What an easy mark you are.
Yeah. And then he just sits there and he looks at me and he looks at the bowl again.
Oh my God! He's rolling 20s on his charisma checks, man. What's he doing?
He was. He's just looking at me like. So I gave him a little bit more, and then I sent him on his way. But yeah, that kid's gonna go far in life. Yeah, he knew what he wanted, and he got it. Yeah.
All right. So what kind of candy do you give away at the house usually?
My wife is usually in charge of. Well, she takes charge of buying the candy, and we have very different. I don't think she buys the best candy, but that's okay. This year we gave out Dum Dums, Skittles, Starburst, just a big hodgepodge of stuff. So like everyone got like a bag of Skittles, some Starburst, and like 5 Dum Dums. That's pretty much what they got because that's what my gloved hand could hold. So what did you hand out?
So we typically don't do chocolate at the house. Usually every year we give out, we get that huge bag of like mixed candy. We're usually a Starburst. Nerds are one we've done in the past quite a bit. Little boxes of Nerds.
I do like Nerds.
Yeah. This year though we did a giant bag of like sourish candy. So we had the little tubes of Sprees that were wrapped up. Original sweet tarts, which are like oversized aspirin just made of sugar, and then we had some Laffy Taffy in that bag. It was all grape though. It was all one flavor
as well.
But it was only one flavor, which is weird to me.
That's weird. The machine got stuck.
Yeah, and then we had sweet tart chewables, which, if I'm honest, it's just cherry Laffy Taffy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was the other flavor. It was just like a grab bag of that, and I probably ate half that bag tonight.
Good for you.
So yeah, it's keeping me awake and keeping me energized.
We have a ton left.
I always told myself that I would be the guy that gave out like the huge oversized candy bars, but that never happened. We just grab whatever's on the shelf at Target when we walk by. I don't know.
Exactly. You know what? And handing out full size candy bars, I mean, I'm not a penny pincher, but that can be a little pricey. Like,
yeah, I mean, I'm not a big candy bar person, but I don't know what the going rate is these days. Yeah. All right. Well, that's good. So just a couple things to catch up here before we roll into a couple topics that we have for tonight. So it is Halloween. I really enjoyed the intro and the change of intro music last week. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so that was friend of the show, Uriah. He is someone who works with. He actually sent in 3 different intros. So you might hear another one of his today. But I really like the third one. It used what was the song? New Sting by Kevin I don't know. My last name is hard. McLeod. I think it gave our the podcast a very professional feel.
Now, is that licensed audio? Did he pay money for that?
No, it is free for commercial use as long as you provide credit. I'm reading this from the email he sent me.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. So he's got a few other.
Yeah, because I saw the I saw the show notes and I'm like, huh.
Yeah.
What's going on here?
Yeah, I put that. Yeah, I did what I was supposed to do, and I gave him credit.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So that's good. Yeah. I don't know if there's any other follow up from last show. Did you have anything to bring back?
Nope. I'm good.
Okay. All right. So there is one thing I want to talk about. I'm still eating candy. There's one other thing I want to talk about before we get going.
Okay.
I went down a weird YouTube rabbit hole a couple days ago, and now my algorithm is all messed up. But somehow I didn't get the original video, but I got the hot takes of the original video.
Okay.
Which is, I guess, Edward Snowden was on Joe Rogan's podcast. And I guess he mentioned that he has a particular laptop that he uses. And it wasn't one that I had ever heard before. And some of these dudes that do, like, hot take reactionary videos on YouTube, which it's always some, like, dumpy white dude, but whatever. Listen, I'm a dumpy white dude. I'm allowed to say that.
Me too, buddy. Me too.
Yeah, but there's this company called Librem. Have you heard of them?
I have not.
Okay, so normally when I see like weird off-brand laptops, my alarms are like on silent. Like I know that I need to be careful when I'm shopping for something that isn't necessarily a name brand. But after doing a little bit of research here, these are really cool. So the whole concept is, and the reason that Mr. Snowden is such a big fan, is that these laptops are for the privacy-minded individual. Which it is not necessarily the main reason that I got attracted to it. We'll get into one of the main reasons I got attracted to it for a minute here. But the idea is that it comes with a custom image of Linux on it that is very privacy focused. It has tactile kill switches for things like your microphone, your webcam, so you don't have to have one of those obnoxious like stickers or post-it notes across your webcam thing. Yeah, so and it's got the specs on them don't really stand out. They're older, like they're 7th generation processors, but you can configure them to have a lot of RAM. They don't have like the swiftest graphics in the world, but they're pretty rugged for what they are. And one of the things that really caught my eye is that they're just very plain looking, but they're very slim. And they're made of aluminum, which kind of, scratches my MacBook Pro, MacBook Air type itch. And they have all of their internal components are basically like ethically sourced, I guess you could say, to where like they're wireless cards that the security community realizes are maybe a little more secure than the crap you would get in your Dell. Same for the video card and some of the other integrated circuits and things. And they have this whole like belief system around what a laptop should be and how it should respect your privacy. And, if it weren't for the display, which the display is only, depending on the model you get, it only does 1080p display, but it is a nice matte panel. And it comes in black, which is pretty good. And they don't weigh a ton, and they come in 13 and 15 inches. But I'll put a link in the show notes if you haven't already pulled it up. But they're a really interesting laptop, and I've watched a few people review them, and they don't hate them. Like they're not bad.
They got a nice taper. They got a nice taper, kind of like a MacBook Air. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just saying that if I was in the market for a PC, I would probably look at this. But here's what I don't know.
Okay.
So the when you go to like customize this thing, and this is what I've been reading this website for like the last 2 days, and I haven't quite figured it out yet. When you get to the configuration screen, there's 2 drop downs that I don't really understand here. The first is you choose what firmware you want.
Okay, that is interesting.
It's very
some
interesting,
of them
right?
Cost more. Wow,
and
I've never seen anyone make you pay more for firmware before.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's the free one, which is called Core Boot and CBIOS, right? Which I assume is just whatever the default is. There is the Pure Boot bundle, which basically secures booting also with a Librem hardware key.
Interesting.
And then a Pure Boot bundle where if you're really nervous about the mail, your Librem key is shipped separately and some sort of USB drive that comes with it. And that's an $84 option.
It can't be intercepted during transport
Right.
and Haxord.
Right. It's a binary solution, Paul.
You can't be pwned at the post office. Got it.
Right. The government can't open it up and get to it. And then,
Okay.
and this is the one that kills me, though. Pure Boot Bundle Anti-Interdiction. What does that mean exactly?
What is that?
I don't know, and that's what I can't figure out. I need to do some deeper Googling, but that's a $249 option, which is just as much as adding 32 gigs of RAM.
I don't even.
So I don't know what that is.
I'm trying to find a spot on their page where they explain that. Like, you think they would have a click here for more information.
You know what, Paul? It might not be for us, right? It might be one of those things that if you know what it is, great, and if you have to ask, you don't need it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. The other thing is that the operating system is their Pure OS, which is like their like custom security conscious. Most defaults are set so you can't mess anything up type thing. But I'm wondering if you can put Windows on it. I don't. I'm assuming you maybe can, but
That's what I was going to ask you, because there was a point where I was kind of a little grumpy with Apple. And I wanted a new laptop, and I didn't want to spend that much. So I ended up buying a Linux laptop from System 76.
I remember that.
Yeah, they're a fine company, but like Linux on the server, pure command line, like I love it. I use it every day. It's good stuff, but like Linux that you have to use every day, like on a laptop, like it's. I mean, there are some people, and I work with them, who like that's what they do. Like, they live at a terminal and they use fancy Linux Windows managers, and things are constantly breaking and can't connect to Wi-Fi, and they just eat that crap up. But that I really gave it a good college try, and I could not live with Linux on my laptop.
I gave Linux a really good shake because there was a period of time where I was moonlighting on like a data analytics team at my previous job, and that required me to basically move desks a lot. And I was the person that at the time I did not have my MacBook Pro, but I had a desktop computer. And I would just kind of VPN or remote desktop into that if I needed something. Well, because I was moving around and constantly switching desks and going to meetings and things, the company issued me like a loaner laptop that I had. And the first thing I did is, because I was living in the Python and like Spark world, is I just said, you know what, this is a good opportunity to really give Linux a shot on the desktop. So I put I basically put CentOS on it. And, I spent time joining it to the domain, and I customized my window manager, and I did all the things that, like, is like part of a job description of working with Linux, right? Like,
right,
getting it set up just the way you want, so then when it breaks, you have to start all over. But no, I'm only half joking. But it was a pretty decent experience. The only thing I hated was I could not get a good Office 365 workflow on it. Like, the native applications weren't great. The ones that could get email were serviceable, but there was never any good calendar integration, and I just didn't really want to use the web UIs. But in retrospect, that's what I probably just should have done, and it would have worked out better for me. But I was, but all the other applications I needed were there. There was Teams, there was, Visual Studio Code, and I was at Azure a lot. PowerShell core works, .NET core worked. Like everything was there that I needed, and it wasn't terrible. But then when I bought my Mac, I just never looked back.
Yeah, I mean that's why I've liked the modern, modern Mac computers is, well, except for literally all of the issues they're having today with the bugs and stuff. But it works. It's got a nice looking, pretty user interface, and under the covers, I've got a Unix compatible, terminal that I can run all my developer commands, and yeah, and plus they look nice. I mean, yeah, they're probably not worth the money that I know if I spent the same amount of money on another kind of computer, I'd probably get a lot more for less, but yeah, I like my Macs.
Yeah, I do too. But this thing got on my radar, and if you're out there and you have experience with one of these, I would kind of love to hear what you're thinking. Because, and here's the other thing too, is these things aren't necessarily cheap. Like the 13-inch, like modestly equipped, is going to run you $1,500 for one of these things. So I have to think that the build quality is pretty good. And like I said, most of the reviews that I have read are pretty good. And these people also make a phone, which is probably, I don't know, it has to be Android, right? Yeah. They make a phone called the Librem 5.
Okay. Yep. Looking at that right now. No, it runs their Pure OS. It is not based on Android. Yeah. So,
interesting.
I hope you enjoy web apps.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And then they also sell like their own kind of branded YubiKeys with Librem keys, and then they've got some decent looking flash drives too. I think are they plastic or aluminum? Nah, it doesn't say. I don't know. I've seen worse drives. Are they USB-C though? USB flash drive operating system.
Okay.
So you could run your OS on there, huh?
Yeah.
USB flash drive 3.0, so that's probably USB-A.
Yeah.
Crap.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
all right.
Yep.
Well, that was worth a shot. Yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna keep my eye on this. I'm really, really curious, kind of what these things are. I don't know. Yeah. So that was the only other thing I wanted to kind of talk about real quick. But one other thing real quick. I know that Apple announced the AirPods. The new AirPods, right? AirPods Pro.
AirPods Pro.
Did you snag a pair?
No. No. I did not. Did you?
I did not.
Okay.
Because I'm busy paying for dental work.
Got it.
But yeah. So
I have a pair. I have a really nice pair of the Sony most recent ones. The model number here, they're in the case right here. Ooh, yeah, hot zipper action. I don't know, it's dark in my office. They're the new ones, the version 3s, noise canceling, and I wear those on airplanes when I mow the lawn and stuff, so I'm not really in the market for a pair of another pair of noise canceling headphones. And like I love my AirPods. I literally use them every day, but they are not my primary set of headphones. They're just not. I use them when I'm, doing housework or, waiting for my son to get done with his trumpet lesson or things like that. They're my fill in the corners headphones. And I just recently bought the AirPods 2 with the wireless charging, and I'd feel bad if I bought another pair of AirPods so soon. But I have seen a pair. Yeah, in the flesh. Yeah, like if I lost these AirPods, maybe I'd buy those, but who knows? Yeah.
That's kind of the boat I'm in. I have worn my AirPods on a plane, and I'm sure the noise canceling would help, but I'm not going to run out and drop $250 when my other AirPods are still kind of working right now. Now, a coworker of mine picked up a pair today, and he said that they are legit. The thing that worries me a little bit, though, and I kind of trust Apple not to screw this up, is the Apple headphones, as far as like an in-ear device, are the only ones that ever haven't annoyed me. Like I've had Beats that are in-ear, I've had other in-ear headphones, and those silicone tips, like, I don't know, they're like fatiguing. So I don't know if I'm gonna like having those like in my ear canal. Yeah. I mean, I know that's kind of what makes this all possible, this whole noise canceling thing. Yeah, I don't know. I'm apprehensive. I would like to try them. But $250, man, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Apple does have a pretty generous return policy, so if you bought a pair, you always could try them. And I'm a little worried as well. I'm not a big fan of silicone tips. I have a couple of sets of really nice earplugs that I have, and they're silicone tips. And like you said, like I'm good with them in my ear for maybe 30, 45 minutes, and then they start kind of, feeling like I need to take them out. So I don't know. Like the current AirPods fit fine on my ear. I don't have any issues with them falling out or being loose. So, I think I'm pretty happy right now.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think... I kind of want to wait a little bit. Maybe that'll be like a good Christmas present we can each get each other. I don't know.
Ooh.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was the only other thing I had. And, when we talked at the end of the last show, I said that I wanted to carve out some time to talk about TV shows.
Yes.
Because I know that we've sort of flirted with that idea on this podcast before of us talking about kind of our favorite TV shows. And I think that if anybody knows me, one of my probably more annoying traits is I just won't shut up about The Wire. So I was going to talk about why I love The Wire so much, and hopefully convince people who are listening that, listen, I'm just going to come out and say it, and you're going to disagree, Paul. It's the best TV. It's the best TV show that has ever been on the air and will ever be on the air.
Okay.
And
you can be wrong about things.
All due respect.
It's okay. Yeah.
All due respect to your choice. All due respect to the Breaking Bads and the Mad Men's and The Sopranos and all those other shows. I don't disagree that those aren't bad shows. Those are all good shows. But for me, The Wire just has a riveting kind of storyline. So I was going to talk a lot about The Wire. But Paul, what was your choice?
Well, I believe that the best show that has ever been on television or ever will be on television is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. That is a show that I mean, I guess it came out in 1997. Thank you, Internet. I didn't start watching it the first season because I kind of had the mind of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. This show can't be good. And like the name kind of is part of the reason for that because it sounded kind of silly. Then I started watching it the second season, caught up on the first season. I probably rewatch all of it, every 5 years or so. Yeah, it's my favorite show. But let's start with why you love The Wire, and then I will talk about why I love Buffy.
So, The Wire, for those people that don't know it, was an HBO miniseries that aired in the kind of early 2000s, and it ran for 5 seasons. And the premise of The Wire is The Wire was created by this guy called David Simon. And David Simon is a pretty interesting cat. I will say that depending on how you view David Simon might kind of color your expectations for The Wire. But David Simon, he worked for the Baltimore Sun. He was a police reporter for the Baltimore Sun. And he wrote a book called Homicide, A Year on the Killing Streets, which, for those of you that don't know this or don't live in America, Baltimore, Maryland is a very violent city. There's a lot of drugs, a lot of gang-related violence there. It's also known as Bodymore, Murderland.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. It's quite a violent city. And my brother lived there for a few years when he was working at Johns Hopkins, and he just said, look, there's places you don't go, right? There's just places that you don't really want to be in Baltimore. And I know every city has one of those bad areas, but the east and west side of Baltimore can be pretty rough. So when David Simon was working at the Baltimore Sun, he basically wrote a couple books. He wrote the Year on the Killing Streets, and then he wrote a book that kind of talked about the other side of it, right? The first was from the perspective of the police, and then he talked about kind of the perspective of the drug dealers, because the drug trade in Baltimore is kind of what The Wire is all about. And his second book, which was known as The Corner, he kind of used this investigative and reporting, contacts and instincts and everything to write this book. And then he took that book, and then that book is what he adopted into the miniseries of The Wire. Okay, so The Wire takes place, I believe, the storyline takes place shortly after 9/11. Right now, the series aired, I think, 2004. Don't quote me on that. I got to look that up. Started in 2004. And it runs through the course of like 5 years or 5 seasons ish, with each season kind of focusing on a different aspect of Baltimore. Now, the way this works is that this is one of those shows where you have a bunch of concurrent storylines all going on at the same time, and there are points that you expect the stories to intersect because they are obviously building to the point where the drug dealers and the police are going to have their moment of reckoning, right? Like somebody's going to get caught, or someone's going to get shot, or someone's going to get arrested or something like that, right? But then you have all these other storylines that just kind of effortlessly like bounce off each other, but in a good way, where these other two non-related storylines at all have these characters interacting, and it's just so good. Right? Like the example that I give of that is there is a character in the show, his name is Jimmy McNulty. And if you were going to pick like a main character for the show, he's in every season. He is central to almost every major plot line in the show. It is kind of about Jimmy McNulty to some extent. But there is a woman who plays his wife, and his wife has really kind of crucial plot points in every season. Some more directly related to him than not. Like, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but in the second season, she shows up as a real estate agent for some other players in the plot. And it just kind of works, because you're looking at this saying, if Jimmy knew that that she was their real estate agent, like, it would just completely like blow the whole plot upside down, but it doesn't. And it's so crazy to watch some of these stories kind of intertwine. So, and like I said, this takes place over 5 seasons. And the thing that makes it so good and so compelling is you have all these different like factions in the show. You have the police. You have, and when I say the police, you have the detectives, you have the beat cops, you have the rank and file, you've got the brass and the people who kind of report to City Hall. And then you've got the drug dealers and the different like, east side versus west side. You've got people who prey on the people who run the drug trade, which is like your Omars. You've got the schools and how they're failing, and basically they're there to prevent some of these kids from becoming these violent criminals, but it ends up pushing them in that direction. And then you've got the paper, like the media in Baltimore, which again, Baltimore Sun, David Simon has ties to that. And, how they influence political things. And then kind of one of the best things is in season 3 and season 4, you get introduced to the politics of Baltimore, and you get introduced to city council and the mayor, and how this young upstart is going to try to become mayor. And you watch that whole thing evolve over the course of a season and a half, culminating with the election and what happens there. And then you watch as everything that these people work for just becomes utterly compromised and just turns to ash in their mouth. And there's very few happy endings in The Wire. It's not unfair, but it's not a good... There's only, I think, maybe 1 or 2 moments in the show where you're really rooting for somebody, that something really happens. And you end up rooting for the characters. You end up rooting for the good guys. You end up rooting for the bad guys because they all have their different storylines and they all have their different plots. And every single person, every single character in that show is compromised. There is something that holds them back or something that makes them so flawed and yet so lovable and contributes directly to everything that they do in the show. It's so compelling. It's so expertly written. It's expertly shot. It's shot on location. The characters, man, like if you get to, I think it's episode 7 or 8 of season 1 and you're not hooked, that is the episode that will completely suck you in. I think I've mentioned that before on the show. It is just so incredibly good. And every season has a theme. So the first season is all about the police. And it's about how they conduct an investigation and all the dysfunction that comes along with that. You know, they know what they need to do, but there's this reluctance to change tactics, and you have to like fight that like internal bureaucratic and political battle to do what they need to do. And then the second season focuses on the docks of Baltimore, which, you know, I go back and forth on this a lot of whether season 1 or season 2 is the weakest season. And I'm currently in the mode, after having watched season 1 again really recently, that maybe season 2 isn't the best. But season 2 focuses on the docks and, you know, how this illegal activity, these illegal drugs kind of make their way into Baltimore, and how you have these power players versus the drug dealers, and how people are staying on top of it. And there's things that happen in season 1 that set things up for season 2. And then season 3 is all about the drug dealers. There's some internal power struggles and territory changes and things. And it culminates with a really powerful scene where 2 people have to make a choice, and it's just really, really hard. But again, nobody wins, right? And then season 4 focuses on the schools. And season 3 also starts the political, like city council mayor storyline, and that spills into season 4. Season 4 is probably the best season. Season 3 is close, but season 4 is probably the best because we see a lot of redemption from characters that have had some tough times, who turn things around and change their lives for the better. Like I said, those rare happy endings kind of happen in season 4. There's a lot of dark things that happen in season 4. It's, like I said, it's about the schools. It culminates in the big election that was building in the previous season. And then the final season is about the media, and it does focus a little bit on the police department, which has fallen on some hard times due to some things that happened in previous seasons. This entire thing is available on Amazon Prime. There's absolutely no reason you shouldn't watch this show. Each episode is about an hour long. It's extremely binge-worthy. It's one of those things, too, where the dialogue is a little fast, and there are a ton of characters that get introduced very, very quickly. And you'll be tempted to maybe rewatch an episode because you weren't sure you picked everything up. Don't worry. Like, don't let that slow you down. There is just so much to watch and absorb in this show. And then when you're done, you can go online and you can relive all your famous quotes from some of the people who make some really memorable quotes and super memorable scenes. It's just really, really good. Violent show. Don't watch it with your kids. There's not a ton of nudity. There is some. This was before HBO went totally all in on nudity, but there is some because Jimmy McNulty is a complete dog. But it's a great show. And like I said, if you know me, you know that I won't shut up about it. So please, 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 if you've been thinking about watching it, or maybe you've only watched season 1, keep going. Even if you have to maybe get through season 2, which I said, I love all the seasons, but if there's a season that isn't necessarily the best, it's probably that one, although there's some super memorable characters in that one that show up again later. Definitely go watch it. And I will talk about The Wire all day, which I think I have for the past 20 minutes. So let me hit pause, Paul, and let me hear about your choice.
So my favorite series of all time, like I said before, is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And there's many reasons why I really love Buffy. So I'm going to go out first out and say, if I accidentally give any accidental Buffy spoilers, I'm so sorry. I might slip. If you don't want to hear anything, just, use the chapters and skip to the whatever the next thing is, or the end, or just stop listening now. That's fine. And the movie is bad. Don't watch the movie. The movie doesn't exist. Just ignore it.
Hold on, wait. I'm sorry. I hate to interrupt, but I watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie because that came out in a time when I would go to movies, right? I was in high school, I think. But obviously Buffy was a comic long before the movie, right?
I don't think so. I believe it was just an idea. So it was Joss Whedon's idea. And everyone knows, Joss Whedon's done lots of things. Firefly, the first Avengers movie. When he pitched the movie, I think somehow he lost control and the movie kind of became something he didn't really want it to be. It became more campy, less serious than he expected. So I think that's what happened with the movie. I could go look online and really figure out my facts, but what are facts? So the comic started after season 7 of Buffy ended, which I'll talk a little bit about that as well. So the whole premise of Buffy, it was a late 90s, early 2000s drama, starring kids in high school. The gimmick is vampires, demons, the supernatural exists. Most people are unaware of it. And there is kind of one weapon that the humans have against, these forces of evil, and that is the Slayer. And the Slayer just happens to be always a girl. And this was like, late 90s, like your typical action, your action hero was, a big beefy man doing big beefy man things. And that was kind of the stereotype I think Buffy was attacking at first, because, you had Sarah Michelle Gellar playing Buffy. She is not, she's not a man. She's not built. She's a very slender woman. But she being, she was the Slayer, and she had all this supernatural strength to kind of fight, the forces of evil. But like in every season, there was a big bad evil guy that they had to fight in every season, and it was very much a monster of the week kind of formula. But what made Buffy interesting for me was it was really less about, like, they fought monsters, but the monsters were always kind of like, metaphors or allegories. Like literally in one of the seasons when, again, minor spoilers coming up, like as they were leaving high school and getting ready for college, at the end of that season, the battle that ensued, like, literally destroyed the high school. It was kind of like this metaphor of like, hey, we're done with high school and we're literally going to blow it up. And the things I really liked about Buffy was, obviously strong female characters. You didn't see that very much in, late 90s television. I believe there was an interview with Joss Whedon, because he's done this kind of thing before. He had a Buffy and Dollhouse and something else with female leads. And like someone asked him in an interview, like, why do you keep having these strong female characters? And he said that's because people like you keep asking that question over and over again. That was his answer. And Buffy was really more about the interaction between a group of friends. In fact, my daughter's middle name is literally from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Buffy has some of the best episodes in television that I think have ever existed. There's a few just thinking about. One that comes to mind is Hush. It was an episode where basically these demonic creatures came and stole everyone's voice. And about like 95% of the episode, nobody speaks. It's a very powerful, moving episode. There's an episode, again, minor spoilers coming up, called The Body. and it's literally about Buffy's mother dying. And she dies in a perfectly, totally natural way. And watching the episode and like, you know, she's this powerful figure with super strength and super speed. And, you know, her finally coming to grips with a problem that she can't solve by punching something was a very powerful episode. In fact, you know, some scholars believe it may be the best episode of television that has ever aired. They did the first musical episode once more with feeling. It's spectacularly good. Another thing that really that I really enjoyed about the show was it was the first show that I remember ever seeing that featured gay characters without making them kind of caricatures. They were actually human beings with real feelings who just happened to be gay. And I think kind of in the early 2000s when that started, that was kind of a new idea. There wasn't a lot of gay characters on television. So I think like Willow and Tara really kind of were groundbreaking in that aspect. And like it wasn't about them being gay. This just happened to be gay, and the show wasn't afraid to like show that and explore those parts of those characters. Like the show ran for 7 seasons. There are, I mean, if you watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer, there are some tremendously bad episodes in those 7 seasons. Like beer bad, just it's awful. Just do not watch it, or watch it and just know that it's gonna be kind of rough. But overall, I still think it is the best show that has ever been on television. It spawned a spin-off of Angel. You know, again, minor spoilers. Angel is a vampire who has a soul. There's on again, off again romantic interest between Buffy and Angel. I think Angel actually continued for a couple of seasons after Buffy ended, kind of finishing up that storyline. And if you really like Buffy, the story continues. They kept doing many seasons, like quote unquote seasons of the episode in a comic format. How many did they do of those? Buffy. They went all the way through season 12 in the comics. And those are very interesting because unlike the television show, they had basically an unlimited budget because they could draw anything they wanted. So the stakes kind of got higher and kind of got more... the scope was bigger in the comics. And if you're a super big nerd, a kind of small indie comic studio called Boom has started a reboot of Buffy and Angel set in modern times. So basically, you know, cell phone and the internet with some interesting spins on the characters you've kind of grown to know and love. Yeah, but it was, I mean, kind of like, if you look back, at least for me, like growing up and remembering the impact that like MASH had on the culture, right? And the way they did storytelling, and that was kind of really unique for that time. I really think that Buffy is like our generation's version of that. Very unique use of storytelling, not afraid to try new and interesting things. Yeah, kind of pushing the boundaries of what television was. And it's kind of unfortunate that, you know, the name is so silly, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. But I almost think that's kind of the point, right? It's really attacking those, you know, your stereotypical version of what a hero is. Yeah, I'm going to stop rambling about Buffy. But it's good. You should watch it. Yeah.
It's interesting. Like, that was a show that it was on TV. What years did it run from again?
It started in 1997 and it went through 2003. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was late high school and then college for me. So my junior and senior year of high school, I didn't get to watch a ton of TV because I was working after school a lot. And then in college, I just wasn't around during the day to watch TV. I couldn't even tell you when it was on, but I know that a lot of my friends would rave about it. And I remember when pirating movies and TV became a thing, that was a series that always seemed to kind of pop up on sharing sites, as people always had Buffy. So I know it holds a really special place in people's hearts, but I just have to say I never really got into it. And what's interesting is that, you know, I've heard people talk about Buffy and they'll say, "Oh, that's that awful movie. Why would I ever watch the TV show?" And to your point, it's just completely different, right?
Yeah.
But that hasn't been the reason that I haven't gotten into it. I just haven't sat down and watched it, which is ironic because that's what I'm yelling at everybody to do for The Wire, right? So
it's available on Hulu, I believe, if you want to stream it. I'm not too sure which version is out on Hulu. You kind of have... The best way to watch Buffy is to buy the original DVDs that you can find. A little soapbox. There was a kind of a point where they tried to... Buffy existed before HD television was a thing, and they never really switched over to it. But there is this kind of HD remake where they kind of try to force it, and it's really bad. One, because, as you kind of know, you know, they take a 4:3 and make it a 16:9, so they kind of have to pick which part of the frame is in there, and they did a really, really bad job of that. And then there's also points where they didn't redo the special effects, so it kind of switches from this kind of quote unquote high def to a more standard def for some of the special effects, and that can be really jarring. So, you know, I guess in some ways they kind of ruined it. Stupid execs trying to make a buck. But it's still, if you can get past that, it's still, I think, some of the best storytelling that you'll see on television.
Okay.
No.
Well, you sold me.
Yeah.
I mean, I will eventually get to it.
Yeah, and you know what? I have The Wire is literally on my list in a Amazon Prime video to watch. I just haven't started yet. Now, I have a question for you. Now, I know we're talking for an hour, so we'll kind of try to keep this brief. What show that is new-ish, right, or still being made, that, what is your number one new show that you watch right now?
All right. So I'll be as brief as I can, but we don't have cable in the house.
Okay.
So if there is a show that is currently on the air, we don't watch it.
Okay. Well, on the air, whether it means Netflix is still making them or Hulu is still making them, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair.
Because we don't have cable either.
Yeah. Well, the answer to that is Letterkenny.
Oh, there it is. Woo.
Yeah. So and I was just going to go there, honorable mentions of other shows that I really, really enjoy. And I have things on my list, like Mad Men is way up there. It's not as good as The Wire, but Mad Men I think is better than your Breaking Bads or your Game of Thrones or Sopranos. Mad Men was fantastic. But Letterkenny, for those of you that haven't watched it, and again, I'm late to this party because apparently this has been out for several seasons. It is a Hulu exclusive, correct?
It is. Yep. I'm also new to this show as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, it is a show that is basically Canadian, right? So if you, yeah, it's very Canadian. If you ever watched the Trailer Park Boys, that show's pretty Canadian. Letterkenny is even more Canadian.
Yeah. And not just Canadian, like rural farm Canada. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember watching the first episode and thinking, well, that's pretty funny. Is it really going to hold my attention? And oh my goodness, does it hold your attention? Because there's a lot of recurring jokes. There's a lot of recurring things.
To be fair.
Characters are, to be fair. Yeah, to be fair, they, the jokes are fast and furious. The dialogue is amazingly funny and witty. Yeah. We could probably do another hour on Letterkenny. Just suffice to say, if you have Hulu, give the show a shot.
Yeah, and like I tell people, like the jokes are very dense. It is very fast. I think it's very well written. If you watch the first 3 minutes of the first episode of Letterkenny and you don't laugh, the show's not going to be for you.
Yeah, bail out.
Bail out. But if you're laughing, it gets like it maintains that level of quality. I mean, like it's part like there is a story. They are going through stuff. And there's like reoccurring gags. There's a lot of insult humor where people are making fun of other people. There's a lot of puns, a lot of wordplay. But it's so smart. It's so fast. Yeah, it's extremely good. Yeah. So I'm going to throw one out here, a kind of honorable mention new show, BoJack Horseman. Now,
yeah.
Have you watched BoJack?
I have watched all of season 1 of BoJack Horseman.
Okay.
And I started to watch the second season, but I got derailed somewhere in the middle. They're on what season now?
Let's see. I just finished watching today. It's the first half of the 6th season just got released.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I see it pop up like in previews of other shows I'm watching. And I'm like, oh, I should get back and watch that. That show's pretty darn dark, but it's good.
It is. It's very dark. I personally think it is the most accurate depiction of like mental illness and like addiction that I've ever seen on television. For those of you who have never watched it, yeah. For those of you who haven't watched it, it is animated. The kind of the visual gimmick. It's a world where humans and human-like animals live together. So, like, BoJack Horseman is literally a horseman. He's a kind of a, has-been movie star from a 90s sitcom. He's depressed. He's an alcoholic. And it kind of just goes through his life. And it's very dark, but again, it's very clever. It's funny and then touching at times. Yeah. Cannot recommend it any more than that.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I have been watching. No, it's mostly been Letterkenny and rewatching The Wire for the 90th time. Honestly, like, one thing I've been doing is, now that I work at home, sometimes, and I don't say that this isn't like a flex or anything, but I almost have to like stop myself from working a little bit. Like,
yeah,
it gets to be lunchtime and it's just like, well, I'll just keep working on this thing and then I'll blink it'll be 2:00. So like, typically what I do is right around noon, I just take like a little 15-20 minutes to myself to eat something. And I have just been like firing up YouTube and just, again, this is how I went down the rabbit hole of that laptop. Watching, old, like, there's a lot of channels that have popped up on my feed for whatever reason where people like review old computer hardware.
Okay.
It's definitely a weird subgenre, but like I just kind of watch like little snippets of YouTube and then I get back to work. And then at night I'll fire up something on the streaming service to watch. But go ahead.
If you like watching someone talk about kind of old technology, have you seen Technology Connection?
I have not.
Okay, so there's a YouTube channel called Technology Connection. It's just one guy, and he talks for, depending on the subject, but he covers everything about like how like VCRs worked and why VHS beat beta and why basically how every like portable like heater unit that you can buy is basically the same. Talks about like why Laserdisc failed, and just here's one, this antique toaster that's better than yours. Yeah, it's really good. Like, I don't watch every single one, but I kind of just subscribe to his thing, and when there's something that I'm even remotely interested in, like he's got really good ones about cassette tapes and portable air conditioners and how LED traffic lights work. Yeah.
Yeah, the one that I seem to gravitate back to a lot is there is a channel It's called Lazy Game Reviews, which is a little bit misleading. I mean, he does review some older video games, but what's really fascinating about this channel is he the guy that does it, he obviously grew up in the same kind of time period that we did. I think he's maybe 2 or 3 years younger than me, but he basically, his whole kink is that he's got like old 486s, 386s, IBM like PCs, and like old DOS games and Windows games that probably you and I grew up playing, right?
Right.
He like collects and a little bit restores these things. So like he'll do a video on, why the IBM PC was so revolutionary, or He did this one video on e-machines that was like so well done, and he's done things on like why gateway computers were so awesome back in the day.
Yeah.
And then he'll talk about, and then he does stuff where he reviews like classic PC hardware, like the first video accelerators or like the first ad-lib sound card, like how that worked, how MIDI works. And then he'll talk about like weird pieces of like 90s technology. Like he did a thing on the zip drive. Like who didn't have a zip drive, right?
Yeah,
like,
I sure did.
Like it's a pretty cool channel to get into. I'll post some of the bigger hits out there, but like he did one on like this mouse that you were supposed to control with your hands, and it's just like it was just a little bridge too far for 1996. You know what I mean? It just doesn't quite work out, but you could see how it influenced things that we have today. So
yeah, I already see a handful of videos on his page that I want to watch. So
yeah, some of them are very, very well done, and some of them are tech tales where he talks about like the rise and fall of companies, or like what happened to them, or they're pretty well done. His older videos are pretty hit and miss, but his tech tale stuff, his LGR, he calls them LGR things, where he reviews like a particular thing, are pretty good. He did this one. And the one that I found is the one that got me hooked, because there used to be a Macintosh that you could buy that had like a 486 or Pentium in it. It was basically like a dual PC.
I had a friend who had that. Yeah.
Yeah. And like you could hit a button and basically switch from Mac, like System 7 to like, or System 6 to like DOS.
Yep.
And like it was like a $4,000 computer in 1994, which is like $10,000 today. Like,
yeah.
How you ever had one of those, you probably didn't. But he does a review of it, and it's just like, you can go find some of these things. He's obviously a collector, and he knows what he's talking about, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, okay, this is going to be my next rabbit hole, I can already tell.
Yeah. It's pretty good. Yeah. It's pretty good.
All right.
Cool. All right, well, that's a pretty good one.
Yeah, there we go. I think
it's it's weird sometimes. Like I'll look at the doc throughout the week, and I'm like, man, what are we going to talk about this week? And I know that we talked about doing the TV one, and I'm glad we were able to spend the time that we did on it. But man, it's weird just how these things kind of just naturally flow together.
Yeah, like
I don't know.
I stopped worrying about it. Like I know we literally had one thing, maybe two, in the doc when I started. I'm like, we'll find something to talk about.
We always
it's like we're getting good at this.
Yeah, we're getting not bad. I have a surprise for the next podcast. I was hoping I'd have it done in time for this one.
Okay.
I'm making some upgrades to the home studio, so I will keep you posted.
I'm very excited.
Yeah. Okay, Paul, where can people find us?
All right. You can find the podcast on the internet at doingtheirbest.com and on Twitter at doingbestpod. You can reach out to me personally. Email. You can send us email, send us show topics, which I still have some I need to put in the document. You can send us intros. I've been talking to people who've had ideas for intros, so I'm trying to push them to actually send them to us. Please email those to us at contact@doingtheirbest.com. And you can reach out to me personally on Twitter at Paul Baylor. That's BAHLER. And where can we find you on Twitter, Drew?
So people can find me on Twitter at Pitferg. I really hope people reach out to me. I love hearing from people who listen to the show. I love the fact that we're doing the intros. Keep those coming. And I know we said we have some topics to throw in the doc too, right?
Yes. Friend of the show, Rob, has sent me an email that I've had flagged literally for like 2 or 3 weeks that I need to put those into the doc.
I can't believe that we have 16 pages of notes.
I know this. Yeah. Yeah, so if you're following along, we have this giant Google Doc with all of the show notes and episodes that we've had, and we don't delete anything. So it's literally like the top like page and a half are just ideas, and then the next 15, 16 pages is just all of the shows we've done. Yeah, it's beautiful.
All right, we'll keep them coming, and we will talk to you all next week.
Yep, thank you. Yep.
Hey, Paul,
Yep.
that's a Texas size 10-4, good buddy.
Pitter patter.
Yep. See you guys later.
Toodles.